For decades, the series Final Fantasy has taken a leading role in defining RPGs, stretching back to even before I was born. It not only spans 16 main games, but has many spin-offs, mini-games, cultural references, and even movies. These games have a special place in many hearts, introducing many to their love of RPGs. Back in 1987, the first of these games, Final Fantasy, was an explosive success that, alongside games such as Dragon Quest, revolutionized how RPGs were created. It was such a success that programs such as RPG Maker were made specifically to make games of its style. However, if we were to take this historical game and release it today, would it still be the riveting success that it was then? Or would it disappear in the deluge of games released nowadays? That's what I'm here to find out. Now, I'll be using the Pixel Remaster on Steam to work with, which updates the original NES game with modern conveniences and improved graphics. For fairness, let's assume a modern release would naturally include some of the same quality of life improvements. First thing I want to get out of the way is the graphics. The first Final Fantasy sports graphics of a 2D pixelated retro design that befitted the era of its release. Years ago, having pixel graphics for me meant an obsolete game and was immediately shunned. However, nowadays with games like Stardew Valley and Celeste, I have repented of my ways and pixel graphics have become a style equal to any other. In fact, I have even developed a fondness for older games like this. So that's why I decided to pick this game up for the first time a few months ago. And I have to say, for such an old game, I was hooked right out of the gate. I loved playing this game so much it took everything I had not to play it off of stream. The power progression felt really good. I would find enemies of an adequate difficulty, then I would fight them, grow, get new equipment, learn new spells, then would easily beat those enemies, only to progress the story and find enemies that once again challenged me. I could feel myself getting stronger without feeling I was either overleveled or overwhelmed. Also, when it came to the story itself, just exploring the world and talking to the NPCs was enough for me to figure out what needed to happen next. It was never too blatantly obvious, but it was enough to keep things moving. The game also has a pretty easy user interface. I was able to navigate it without any real major problems. Combat is easy to navigate, and I didn't ever feel overwhelmed by the options of the character screen. Of course, I feel the game-altering features like turning encounters on and off should be at least behind a New Game Plus, but I honestly don't think that they would put it in a new game anyway. That's something more exclusive to a remake. Replayability has so much potential. Now, I started with the default classes Warrior, Thief, White Mage, and Black Mage. However, having the additional classes of Monk and Red Mage allows for experimentation, like maybe not using the Thief, ever. Or even challenge runs, like only playing with warriors or something. I also really like how they handled the open world mechanic. The world was pretty open, but at the same time it was limited. The world size was pretty small starting off, then got bigger as you progressed the story. First opening up the bridge, then I got a ship, a rowboat, and eventually an airship that could take me anywhere. I honestly prefer this to just being given everything the world has to offer right out of the gate. Makes it feel like the world is dynamic and your choices make a difference in the world one way or another. However, it's not all perfection. The game does have its own set of problems as well, primarily after we've progressed further into the game. At a certain point, the NPC's instructions that had led me so far let me down and I got stuck. It got to a point where the instructions were too vague, or the world was so expansive that I had no idea who I needed to talk to in order to figure out what to do next. Fortunately for me, I had my chat to help me out, but people playing this game in our theoretical scenario won't always have that benefit, and it could cause some people to be unable to progress. The story of this game is also pretty generic. There's no individuality to the characters, and honestly, the party is rather forgettable. While there is some appeal to playing a nobody in a fantasy game, it's a bit too generic for my tastes. It works when a game like this is the first of its kind, but in a world like today, where the games like this are a dime a dozen, it doesn't particularly stand out. I would say this game is too open to be strictly story-based, but too linear to be an immersive roleplay experience. Late game for me was also a bit underwhelming. While early on in the game, progression was both visible and felt amazing, that benefit faded with time. Now, this could be because I was over-optimized without even realizing it, but about halfway through the game, the enemies just started to feel weaker and weaker the closer I got to the end. I didn't even have to do any special grinding, just played straight through the game. This caused me to get overconfident and get completely obliterated by the final boss. Having a hard final boss is good and all, but I also wish the enemies had been harder leading up to that point. Feeling strong feels awesome up to a point. Eventually though, it makes it a little bit dry. So would the first Final Fantasy hold up on its own if it was released today? While this game has quality and for sure isn't the bottom of the barrel, I don't think it's a mind-blowing production either. It's one that would be enough to have a decent following, but probably not the world-shaking change that it was back when it was first released. Still, if you haven't played it, I would give it a shot and tell me what you think. Also, let me know if you disagree with me and why in the comments down below. At the end of the day, gaming is about creating your own story, so go ahead. Play it your way and make it unforgettable.